It's funny to think about, but what if a church service could tell a story, not just with words, but with light and darkness and even smoke? Well, the ancient service of Vespers does exactly that. Every single evening, it retells the entire story of the cosmos, from creation all the way to redemption. Let's dive in and see how it works.
It all kicks off with this really foundational verse from Genesis. I mean, for you and me, the day starts when the sun comes up, or maybe at midnight. But right here, the whole order is flipped. Evening comes before morning. And believe it or not, the entire rhythm of the church's life is built on that one single, counterintuitive idea.
So that leads us to the big question, right? Why on earth does the liturgical day begin at sunset? Well, the answer isn't really about telling time. It's about a deep, cosmic story of God, of humanity, and the nature of light itself.
Okay, so to get this, we have to see that for the church, the day starting with the setting sun isn't just some random quirk. It actually symbolizes a divine pattern. It's this rhythm where a descent into darkness always comes before the glory of a new dawn.
So what does evening really mean in this story? Well, it's not an ending, and it's definitely not the absence of light. Instead, I want you to think of it as this holy threshold, a meeting place where light and dark come together. It symbolizes God's movement, descending from pure divine light down into our world to save it. It's a time of holy expectation.
And this is where it gets really powerful. St. Gregory of Nyssa connects the daily sunset directly to Christ. He says that when Jesus, the true Son, went down into death, that evening wasn't an end. No way. It was the very beginning of a new day for all of us, the day of resurrection. Okay, so with that huge cosmic idea in our heads, let's actually step inside the service itself. Vespers isn't just a collection of prayers. It's a journey, and it's a journey that takes us right back to the beginning of time, to the Garden of Eden.
So, the service begins very quietly, with the priest reading Psalm 103, which is this great hymn of creation. The Church Fathers even called this the first gospel. It's meant to evoke that stillness and perfection of paradise, a world that's radiant, harmonious, and just filled with God's presence.
But then, everything changes. The tone shifts dramatically. The harmony of creation just shatters, and it gives way to the cry of fallen humanity. A series of prayers called the Great Litany begins, and that repeated phrase, "Lord, have mercy," becomes the sigh of a world that has totally lost its way and is longing for redemption.
St. Paul gives us this just incredible image that perfectly captures this moment in the service. The whole of creation is in travail, groaning like it's in childbirth, waiting desperately for something new to be born. So we've gone from the perfection of Eden to a world that is literally crying out for a savior.
So, you have humanity crying out from the darkness of the fall. But here's the crucial part, the whole point of the story. This cry does not go unanswered. God begins to draw near.
And this is where you see this amazing two-way street happening. As the evening psalms are sung, the priest swings a censer and the whole church fills with incense. Now look at this. The rising smoke represents our prayers going up to God. But at the exact same time, that cloud of incense symbolizes God's presence coming down to us, just like he walked in the garden in the cool of the day. This all builds to a really important procession called the Little Entrance. On the left, you've got an ordinary day where the priest enters with the censer. This symbolizes a God who is present but still unseen. But then, on the right, during big feast days, he enters with the Gospel book. And here, the invisible becomes visible. The promise becomes fulfillment. It's Christ himself entering the world. Okay, let's just pause for a second. We've journeyed from a harmonious creation through a fallen world crying for help, all the way to God drawing near. And that brings us to the absolute turning point of the entire service, the moment where the darkness is finally met with an answer. You hear that plea from the Psalms one last time. It's like this final powerful cry just before everything changes. The whole service has been building to this. You can feel the tension, right? Will the darkness win?
And then, the answer arrives. Just as the sun outside finally sets, symbolizing Christ's death, the lamps inside the church are lit, representing his resurrection. And in that exact moment of light, an ancient hymn is sung, proclaiming Christ as the eternal light of the world. It's a stunning, multi-layered moment.
This hymn, O Joyful Light, or Phos Hilaron in Greek, is just incredible. It's one of the oldest Christian hymns that's still in use, a direct link all the way back to the early church. It is the definitive proclamation that no matter how dark the night gets, it cannot and it will not overcome the light of Christ.
All right, the climax is past, the light has come, and now all that narrative tension, all that yearning and crying out, it finds its peaceful resolution. It gives way to this profound sense of rest and fulfillment.
And this resolution is perfectly captured in the Song of Simeon. I mean, think about this guy, the aged Simeon who waited his entire life to see the Messiah. He represents all of us. He represents a humanity that's been waiting in darkness. And now that he has seen the light, the Savior, he and we can finally find peace. It's just the perfect summary of the whole journey.
Now, let's zoom out for a second, because Vespers isn't some isolated service. It's actually the essential first step in a much larger cycle. As you can see here, Vespers represents purification, God coming down to us. This prepares the way for the next service, Matins, which is about illumination, and then finally, the Divine Liturgy, which is union with God. Each step builds on the last. You really can't get to the end of the story without the beginning.
And you know, this grand cosmic story has a deeply personal side to it. We can all practice a kind of Vespers of the heart. At the end of our own day, we can take a moment for some self-examination, offering up our wounds and our joys to God. It's about consciously allowing God to descend into our own personal darkness, to bring His light and to prepare our souls for peace.
So we end with this question. In our busy, brightly lit, 24/7 world, what could we gain from rediscovering this ancient rhythm? How might embracing a pattern of descent, surrender, and holy expectation, of evening before morning, bring a different kind of peace and purpose to our lives? It's definitely something worth thinking about as the sun sets today.